I know, Sam, we didn't approve this before, but can we
Oh,
do a UFC corner real quick
yeah,
before we
no,
lose?
you're all good.
Champ, are they kicking you out yet? Your
Who's
agent said
kick?
you have all day, so
Oh, my
I just
agent's
assumed.
completely my agent does not control what I do. I'm
Oh,
here. I'm he- I'm
Do you want us to
here.
leave that in? You might hear that.
Go for it, dog.
oh. Go and edit it out.
Go
Leave it in.
for it.
IT, you heard him. He
They
wants it.
work
He
for
wants it
me
on the
for a
record.
reason. They work for me for a reason.
You paid
Oh,
him.
okay.
They can't fire me. I can fire them. That's the way I see it.
Tell him.
Tell your publicist to ease up. You're a pain to book, but since we got you here, we're going to maximize your time. UFC corner.
Let's hit it.
UFC 290 happened. Volk won. Volk Alexander
Dominantly.
dominantly punches in the third, took his man down in a 5-round fight, and Volkanovski has now been moved to the pound for pound number one fighter in the world over John Jones. So I mean, the UFC just in general right now is stacked. There's a ton going on. Uh, Maybe we'll have to just get into UFC in some other time. But Volk over John Jones as the pound for pound number one in the world right now. Are you okay with that?
For sure. I think he's been more active as well. I mean, he's done more to
Hmm.
like prove it. John Jones obviously, has come back after it was a 2 almost 3 year absence and
Yeah.
won in a dominant fashion against someone who was number 2 in the division, the contender for the championship after Ngannou released the title. And he wins in a dominant fashion. But I think at the end of the day, Volk just has that like champs mentality. And I mean, you hear him say it in all of his post fight interviews and all this other thing. He's like, I want to be active. I want to be an active champion. I want the best of the best. He took Islam five rounds,
Yeah.
lost by decision in a very, very debatable fight. I think people can go back and watch that back and be like, Volk actually won the fight. I think if there wasn't so much,
Even in the moment.
uh, I think, yeah, we said it. I think if there wasn't so much pull on this like ground game stuff and just time where you're not really doing anything, but you have control, so they say.
Yeah.
There's so much pull on that, and I think if that wasn't as big of a factor, Volkanovski would have actually won that fight. Um,
Agree.
so I think, I mean, and he went up a weight class too for that fight. I mean, if Islam would have come down to Volk's weight, I mean, he's losing that fight every time. So I think putting him at number 1 in the world is actually very, very like well deserved for a pound for pound fighter. He took someone in Yair Rodriguez who, people were saying might actually be a problem for him because Volk doesn't defend. He's not a perfect fighter, but and the one like weakness that he has is, he doesn't have the length and he doesn't defend the
Hmm.
head kicks super well. And he basically took that, and you can just see him adapting and changing his strategy during the fight. I was actually watching this video where it was pointing out everything that was happening in the fight, and every time Yair Rodriguez was finishing a combo, because he would flurry at you with a little bit of a combo and expect you to back up, and you'd
Yeah.
back up right into his kicking range, and he'd finish it with a right high kick. And Volk anticipated that in the third. He finally like learned, and he actually stayed right in the pocket so the kick wouldn't land, and he caught him beautifully with a right hook. And
Mm.
that was the beginning of the end of the fight. So you just watch him adapt during the fights, and I just think that he's a fantastic fighter, and I think that no one else right now deserves to be number 1 just because they haven't been as active. John Jones had one fight back, and I love John Jones. Like he's a great fighter, and he's dominant. But he had one fight back, and he just shot his way up to number 1.
Yeah.
So I think having someone at number 1 who's actually been active and has had the multiple fights recently is definitely justifiable.
Not only did Jones just have the one fight, but he only probably has one more fight left in the UFC. I mean, he's going to fight Miocic. And then after that, I mean, he's basically done. The only other fighter he said he's willing to fight at that point, because it would be, he's already got the heavyweight belt. Now he's defended the heavyweight belt against the guy who has also had the most decorated heavyweight at this point in the history of the heavyweight division. So he beat that guy. The only other guy he wants to fight is Ngannou because the money there would be just off the charts. That's a must-see fight. John Jones versus Ngannou. So Volk is like you're saying, he's at the peak of his powers right now. He's in the prime of his career. He is the number one, I think, like just working like he's going to be around for a while. John Jones is one and done. He's out. The legacy, I mean, he is the greatest fighter of all time. But I think right now, like you're saying, just the activity in Volk, just he's going to be around for a couple of years. I think it's, I get what they're doing there, moving him up to number one. He's also proved that he just continues to add things to his game. I don't know if he's a perfect fighter, but he's going to be close. And if there's anybody I could bet to get there, like you could say Volk has the best shot. What I will say about John Jones is that Gane fight is about as close to a perfect fight you could have as a fighter. And Gane, for his limitations as a wrestler and all that stuff, he's still the interim heavyweight champion. And Jones doesn't even get hit in this fight. I mean, he takes the shot in the cup at the beginning, but he doesn't even get hit. He just immediately in the center of the ring is just immediately backing Gane down. He circles around the ring a couple times, but just immediately backs him down, immediately takes him down, immediately adjusts position, pins him in 2 minutes. I mean, it's just from start to the literal finish of the fight. I mean, there's nothing more perfect a fighter could have done in terms of getting tagged and just the efficiency of the movement. Everything was literally perfect. So John Jones, that performance was outstanding and the legacy is there. But I think, like you're saying, Volk is in the prime of his career right now. So it's fair to have him number one. But I just am still constantly stunned by what John Jones did against Gane. I mean, Gane, the pedigree, you can look into it. It may not be there, but it was legitimately stunning that how quickly that fight ended.
Yeah, we paid $80 for that fight.
Oh, we did. We did.
And
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm getting my money's worth now because I just continually rewatch it. I mean, it's insanely short. I throw it on all the time, and just the efficiency in that performance. Literally no wasted. There's nothing negative in John Jones' performance at all. It's immediately, and it just immediately takes him down. It's absolutely incredible. So that performance alone is strong enough to have a candidacy for that pound for pound number one. But Volk also going up in weight class too is a strong thing in his favor. So I think if I was having my rankings, I honestly would just still have John Jones number one. And since he is probably not going to be around that long, like just, honor the man while he's around. And then
give it to him.
Volk, hopefully Volk is still good, maybe one fight from now. And you can still have him at pound for pound number one in the world. I still think John Jones is pound for pound number one. But Volk case is right. Like, I'm not arguing against the Volk case. I mean, you know how much I love him, so it makes total sense.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading this interview with George St. Pierre, who's, another one of the UFC greats, and he was comparing Volk to himself, actually, because he was saying, Volk is not one of those people that is like A+ in any of the categories. He's just great at almost everything, which can cause a lot of issues for opponents because they don't exactly have like a strategy going in against him. So I feel like he has potential to be, that number one pound for pound fighter for a long time and have quite a few more title defenses because he's just steamrolled his way through that division.
And, shout out to Rem for allowing me to talk about the other sports that, he may not be watching as often, but, like you said, Quinn, you're here, so we got to take full advantage of all the fighting. And I don't pay attention much to UFC, but I do pay attention to celebrity fights. And if y'all have been paying attention, obviously, to what's going down, it is Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg fight seems to be on the horizon. And it is great that you brought up Georges St. Pierre because he was, seen, I think it was a picture training session, him training with Elon Musk a couple days ago. Zuckerberg training with Adesanya and Volk. So, UFC royalty. So, I know you may want to, you may be down to throw a little bit of money down on some sports every once in a while. I don't know if it's legal or not. We're not getting into that. But if you guys, if you had to bet on one, who would you go with? Have you guys seen any videos? You guys actually watch the sports, so what in your professional opinions, who are you taking, Musk or Zuckerberg?
See, my heart wants to go with Zuckerberg just because everything that you've seen from him, my heart, my brain, I don't know. I feel like my instinct is telling me to go with Zuckerberg just because you've seen more from him. He's won jiu-jitsu tournament and has been working with jiu-jitsu. And as we know, jiu-jitsu is like one of those ground sports which can transfer very well to MMA. And I just talked about it earlier. Ground time and control over the ground is a huge thing. But I also read that Musk has I think it's some sort of fighting background he did in the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah. St. Pierre was saying that like he was really, really strong and really like fun to train with because he kind of knew what he was doing. So then I'm kind of like, I'm at this like crossroads where I'm like, I see more about Zuckerberg, but then I'm also like, Elon is bigger. He's got a bit more like weight and it seems like experience, but they're both training with like what seems to be the best of the best in fighting. But I still think if I'm going to put my money down, it's going on the giant lizard man, Mark Zuckerberg.
Sam, did you say Musk had GSP, St. Pierre training him?
Yeah, and his fighting background, he did
he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I think.
Karate.
Sure.
Yeah, he did karate, taekwondo, judo, and he apparently did Brazilian jiu-jitsu briefly. But it seems like he knows quite a few styles of fighting.
He had a black belt.
I don't know. That's what he said on the Joe Rogan pod. Who knows? Maybe he was zuffing a little bit. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it looks like I'm very excited to see this. This would be wild, especially with Instagram threads coming out. Zuckerberg's making moves.
Fight.
He's trying to maybe take over media, and Musk is always a big personality. That's it might be biggest fight ever. Jake Paul's got to get his throne taken away. Who knows?
Who gets that fight? If that fight actually becomes a reality, who gets that fight? Does it go on Musk's platform, Twitter? Or does it go on Zuckerberg's platform, Meta? Or does Bezos swoop in? They put it on Amazon?
I think it's winner takes all. I think it's whoever wins the fight gets the rights to the replay of the fight.
Oh, okay. So they fight
a simulcast?
Keep it secret. But then you know who won, though, before you watch.
Well, maybe because they're training with like the UFC, so maybe they sign a contract with the UFC and it streams on the UFC site, and then
score, right? The season score.
Yeah, and then it transfers over to the winner's platform.
They simulcast on Twitter and Facebook, and then like you're saying, the winner just gets the right for the rerun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just lives on Twitter for the rest of the time, or just lives on Facebook.
I think that would probably be the move, especially with like how big they are, like in their respective platforms. I feel like
the GSP thing is a sneaky advantage for Musk because, like you're saying, he does have the size advantage. So at that point, it becomes a question of, well, how much training do you actually need for that to just Zuckerberg does seem like the more trained, the quote unquote better fighter. But how much training does Musk actually need because the size is there to overcome that? So he's got GSP working with him. And if this thing takes time, which the longer it takes, who knows if that...
The more it favors Musk, I feel like.
Maybe more favors Musk. Maybe the more it just doesn't even happen at all. But yeah, I mean, if he actually has to get more time to train with GSP, like the size thing could become a real factor.
Yeah, I'm mainly saying like Zuckerberg at this point just because of like the activity. I feel like the activity is like a big
thing.
Bouncing
around a little bit.
Well, that and he's actually just been like doing stuff recently, and
No,
I'm
I
not
got you.
talking about like training like with like Izzy and Volk. Like that's just another thing that's happened after they talked about fighting. But like at the time that they first started talking about fighting, I mean, I'm seeing these posts where it's like Zuckerberg's in there like working and he's doing these jujitsu tournaments and whatnot.
The tournament. Yeah.
So so what my concern on like Elon's side would be is like, yes, he has these like belts and stuff, but how often has he practiced? Like, how long has it been since he like practiced? I mean, anyone can get rusty if they're not like practicing things. So that's that I feel like is a factor too, and becomes less of a factor the more time it takes till they fight. Um, but like yeah, like learning that like Elon has this like background in multiple things as well. I feel like that could end up causing a problem for Zuckerberg.
And I know I mentioned it only a little bit, but this battle does also extend outside the ring. I know I brought up threads already, but
Hmm.
days later, Musk has lawyers has sent Zuckerberg a cease and desist letter but pretty much about the. It doesn't specifically say, but pretty much about threads talking
Yeah.
about systematic, willful, and unlawful misappropriation. Pretty much using it again. He's getting sued. So, Musk is already coming at Zuckerberg in the courtroom. Who knows? Maybe they can decide to fight it out. Whoever wins keeps their Twitter thing platform. I mean, Twitter has been a huge money loss for Musk. I mean, he's been
Hmm.
losing a lot of money, so maybe he'll be fine with having a reason to get rid of it after pretty much wrecking it. But who knows? That'd be funny if they could if they could figure it out that way. But either way, this is a personal battle. It's a lot more on the line than just pride. As they're literally duking it out right now over business stuff. So something to keep an eye on. And I guess question for y'all is, you know, how does it feel as people who actually pay attention to fighting in UFC that these celebrity fights tend to get a lot more of the buzz, a lot more of the attention. Maybe some crazy takes said about it. While every day there are legit fighters, like GSP, maybe considered as the greatest fighter, but not nearly as known as Jake Paul. And when what is it called, legacy media and news stations, when they're talking about fighting, they focus on celebrities. How does that feel as fans who actually do care about the sport and watch it?
I kind of feel like at this point, unfortunately, like it is what it is. Because sure, it might be annoying, but like it's probably more annoying for the UFC fighters than it is for me. And it's actually like bringing attention. Like boxing hasn't really been a big thing until like the celebrities are actually bringing boxing back to life, and now boxing's actually getting more recognition now, and like big fights are happening in boxing and people are paying more attention to it, so you're seeing more like recognition there. But I just kind of think that like we're alive and living in the social media era, and I just feel like the people that have the greater attachment to social media and how to promote and do all that type of thing, they're gonna have the biggest pull. Like Jake Paul just knows how to be the bad guy, be like annoying. People have really disliked him on social media for years and years and years. And so he's just kind of taken that into making something for himself, being more productive, and causing buzz for his fights and whatnot. So, it's kind of I feel more sorry for like the actual people who take the sport seriously and it's like their everyday like lifestyle. But like in Jake Paul's case, it kind of seems like he's kind of put his head down and started like grinding and is actually trying to like become a fighter. So like you can put like a little bit more like
Hmm.
respect there. But then, there are like the celebrities that are just like, I can hop into the ring and get a quick bag. But it shows when you watch the pay-per-view. It's like these guys are really, really um inexperienced, and it's just not as fun to watch. And so I feel like if people are being brought into the sport and watching this, they're like, maybe I'll actually watch the next like UFC card and like see how it's actually done. So the growing of the sport is really the the end game here, which is really what everyone's really looking
Mm-hmm.
for, especially being like someone who's like a fan of the fights and whatnot. Like it's cool to see like the sport getting more recognition. It could end up leading to like the UFC fighters getting paid more, more cards, more stuff to compete with this like celebrity boxing.
And Sam, that's interesting because, Champ, you're right. This is a bigger, I guess, problem, but it's more prominent in boxing that the celebrities are doing these matches because in UFC, you have to learn two parts of the game. There's the stand-up game, but there's also the ground game. So the boxing, you can kind of just get in there. And I'm sure there were some other stuff with the way boxing is as a sport that just makes it a little easier for a beginner to get into. And you can kind of get to a level of entertainment as a boxer compared to a UFC fighter. So it's trended more that way. But the fact that Musk and Zuckerberg are actually willing to do a UFC fight and get in the ring and then there could actually be grappling involved, that is gonna be interesting. And I think the place that Zuck has the advantage, Sam, in the Threads
Okay.
battle is I don't know, and we were talking about about this a little bit earlier before Champ came on, but the like who is using Twitter right now, Sam? Because I was thinking about this. Like, are the young people like us using Twitter and the Instagram users right now? A lot of those people are users like us. So the
Mm-hmm.
people that are going to have the easiest step into getting into threads are going to be a younger audience. So I think what Zuckerberg might be trying to do here is kind of steal a younger audience that may not be like fully on Twitter yet. Like, I don't think the three of us are really as
Yeah.
heavily on Twitter as we are on Instagram. But if there's this Instagram thing that is like Twitter and we're already using Instagram a lot, maybe we would be more inclined to use that versus the Twitter thing. So maybe Musk needs to do this fight to get the teens interested in Twitter so to save his business. Maybe Elon Musk is fighting for the literal survival of Twitter
And
against Zuckerberg.
it is interesting that you bring up him stealing stuff because Musk coming to Twitter did alienate employees, did alienate people, lost a lot of talent,
Hmm.
and reports are saying Zuckerberg picked up some of that talent, and then suddenly he's coming out with his Twitter-like app, going
Hmm.
back to the thing, and this beef has been going for years. There was the satellite. I think it was a $200 million satellite that Zuckerberg had on one of Musk's spaceships, and it blew up. And then Musk
Oh,
kind of just laughed it off. And then it was just. It was just they've been going back and forth, making fun of each other.
this
Musk
is a
is a
brewing rivalry.
Zuckerberg. They're all going after each other. So it's something that's been building for a while, but it will be interesting to see. Two of the most powerful people in technology. We'll have to see if they actually get in the ring, but they're training like it. It looks like it's going to be legit.
Sam, six months from now, is it around a year?
I think it's too close. It is really close to Twitter, and I think that also Zuckerberg hiring some of those people, it's going to be a tough uphill battle. But maybe Musk doesn't have the money to continue this court battle unless the government bails him out again, something like that. But who
Hmm.
knows? I don't know. Yeah, I mean there's Teslas and stuff along those lines, but we know Musk is in a lot of debt from buying Twitter, and now you're trying to go to war with someone who has kind of broaden out their investments. So he's set for a while with Meta. With Instagram and Facebook aren't going anywhere. Oculus, all these different stuff he's doing. So they're not running out of money, and Musk has poured a lot of money into Twitter. I don't know. Who knows what happens with it? So,
Hmm.
but there could be a very well interesting case where they'll have to settle or give up the case if this draws out, which they're obviously Facebook is going to try to litigate this as much as possible because they got
And
the financial upper hand.